Are we lucky or what? Yeah. There's a wealth of wisdom in this room, and I'm looking at 4 people who have a lot of wealth in those noggins. And I'm honored to be able to introduce them and then speak with them. We have David Ratner to my immediate right. We have Derek Danziger to his right. We have Frank King. And we have Russell Trahan. We are very lucky to be able to pick their brains on, I think, a very important topic, which is go-to strategies to generate publicity and speaking bookings. This is really what we're talking about here, is publicity and speaking. So let us begin by having every one of you, if you will, just introduce yourself and let us know something yummy about you.
I'm David Ratner, owner of David Ratner Publicity and Publishing Consulting. Been working with authors for 30 years, helping them raise broader awareness for their books, brands, thought leadership, and other initiatives. Live in Massachusetts, 3 kids, 2 big dogs, a wife, and big sports fan. That's it.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am Derek Danziger. I'm the president of Danziger Public Relations here in San Diego, and really excited to have you all in our city. Sorry that the sunshine isn't here right this second, but I have been doing public relations as president of both large firms and now my own firm for 30 years. And so PR is at the core of what I do, and it's funny, I always say, if you can't tell your parents what you do for a living, it's a very difficult thing, because if I say I'm working public relations, my parents' eyes glaze over. So I say at the very essence of what I do, I'm a professional storyteller, and my job is to help a business, a company, a nonprofit, an organization effectively tell its story to the audiences that it's trying to achieve. And then I'm fortunate that I've also had the chance to publish 2 children's books, the first of which is called I'm Autistic and I'm Awesome. I have a son on the autism spectrum, and then I have another children's book. So I didn't do business books, and we'll talk about that. And then one interesting thing about me, I guess, I used to work at SeaWorld, and I was the one that did all the behind-the-scenes tours for celebrities and dignitaries that came into the park. So I have tons of great stories about visits to SeaWorld. So,
yeah, can't top that. Hi, Frank King. I have something called reverse imposter syndrome. If you have imposter syndrome, you believe that you are not as good as you look on paper, and somebody's going to figure that out and take it all away. I, in fact, believe I am better than I look on paper. My only concern is nobody's ever going to figure that out. I speak on suicide prevention as a workplace health and safety priority, and I take a Donald Miller approach, build a story brand. My job is not to save people from suicide. My job is to empower the audience to save people from dying by suicide. I began my comedy career here in La Jolla. On April 1st of this year, it'll be 40 years ago that I began my career at the Comedy Store in La Jolla. I met my met my second wife here in San Diego about the same time. And a personal note, when I went out with her on the first date, I thought there was a 50-50 chance she might be a guy.
Can't top that. I am Russell Trahan, owner and president of PR Public Relations. We represent speakers, authors, and consultants for 25 years. We have a 100% track record of getting our clients placements. I need to apologize to Suzanne for screwing up her seating order here, but I always like to sit on the far right end as what they call the Crawford seat, because Joan Crawford always insisted on sitting or standing on the far right end of any group shot, because in the olden days when pictures would appear in the newspaper, whoever was on the far right end got their name listed first underneath. So it was always, then it would be Russell Trahan listed first. Henry has printed not only my business book, Sell Yourself Without Saying a Word, but he's also printed my personal book, classic cars and cocktails that share a name. It's called One for the Road, Classic Cars and Cocktails. It's 50 classic cars and cocktails that share a name, like the Kaiser Manhattan and the Manhattan Cocktail. So that's available on Amazon. And I'm going to pass this back because I realize the downside to the Crawford seat is I might go first.
So we're really talking about perhaps a sweet spot between publicity and speaking here. We have an interesting group mix here. I want to ask you to each share with us your, I would say, a go-to strategy to generate publicity and or speaking bookings. You know, whatever that means to you in your unique world. All right, and we'll start with you.
So for me, I think it's just helping people understand their unique selling proposition, right? And not everybody has one, right? Because we live in a world where spaces are really crowded, right? If you're a leadership expert and you've written a leadership book, well, guess what? There's 10,000 of them or more out there. If you're in management, HR training. So it's really understanding or coming up with ways to differentiate yourself from others that are in your space. And so sometimes it's not exactly what you say, but it's how you say it, right? We've heard a lot about storytelling and such, which is incredibly important to be able to articulate, but to differentiate is really important. I always use the parallel of personal finance authors, right? In the end, they all pretty much tell you to do the same thing, pay yourself first and do all these other things. But David Bach came up with the latte factor, and Robert Kiyosaki came up with the rich dad, poor dad concept, and Susie Orman found a way to empower women with what she was doing, and Dave Ramsey does his thing. And so while their messages may not be significantly different, the way they deliver it, the way they package it, the way they position it is really the differentiator. So working with clients to really help them figure out their unique selling proposition is really important. I would say that 70% of my clients at the start don't know it because they've never really spent enough time comparing it to others in their space. All of us think that we're really smart and wise in what we do, and most of them have been really successful in what they've done. But coming up with those differentiators is really critical in my opinion.
I would say for me that, and this struck me when Corey was speaking, is the strategy versus tactics approach that people often overlook. I can't tell you how many times as a PR professional, people will come to me and say, our website stinks, or we need a new e-blast, or we need this or that. And I'm like, well, does anybody go to your website now already? Or does anybody read your e-newsletter? Do you have a story that people care about and stuff? Because I could go tell you to pay $5,000 to get a new website or $50,000, really doesn't matter if nobody's going to your website in the first place. And so a lot of my entree into getting speaking engagements and things is just talking about the power of storytelling and points of differentiation. And to kind of dovetail off what he was saying, one of my favorite things to talk about, I call it my ketchup analogy. And I say every day we are making decisions in our life influenced by the messages that have come to us throughout all of our lifetime, whether we're thinking about it or not. And an example of this is my wife today, Derek, can you go to the grocery store and buy me some ketchup? We need ketchup. So I go up and I look on the shelf and there's 3 types of ketchup. There's Heinz ketchup, Hunt's ketchup, and Ralph's brand, store brand ketchup. I'm gonna grab one of those ketchups, put it in my cart, and keep moving on and do the rest of my shopping. It doesn't matter which ketchup I picked, because she didn't tell me to get a specific one, but I can tell you that whether I pulled Heinz off the shelf because Heinz has convinced me over 100 years that they're a family brand, that they make good ketchup, that they do all this, or Hunt's, I've heard of them, they must be pretty good, they're less expensive and I'll get them, or the store brand, my kids are never gonna know the difference and it's cost $2, so I'm gonna get that ketchup. I made a buying decision, and we're doing this every day in our life 1,000,000 times based on the stories, the messages, and the input that have resonated with us the most. And so what I usually will tell people is, I mean, there's a couple of us here that are PR practitioners. If there was Danziger Public Relations up on the shelf and ABC Public Relations and one other one, somebody's going to grab one of us off the shelf. And why is that? It's what are our points of differentiation? What are the things that we're doing? And that's how we can help others tell their story. So that's just kind of one example that I like to use.
For me, it's all about not being a commodity in the speaking business. Back in the 90s, a meeting planner would grab a speaker with half a dozen keynotes, pick the one they liked, and use them. Nowadays, I believe you need to pick a lane. I picked the lane in January 1st, 2018. I decided I was going to be a suicide prevention speaker in the workplace, period, full stop. And I have other speeches, I will do them, but I don't market them. So you need to pick a lane. Whether you're an author or a speaker, I believe you need to pick a lane and become the thought leader in that lane. Speakers and authors are problem solvers. What problem are you solving? The problem I'm solving is helping people to prevent suicide. I think that helps with publicity because as you build your reputation as a thought leader, then people will seek you out. Hopefully, if they're looking for a speaker in my topic area, at some point they won't just want anybody, they'll come looking for me, and it's begun to happen. It's a long game, but it's begun to happen. Here's what meeting planners tell me they want to see in anything printed about you. One page or website. Frank King is the expert in blank. When they go to my website, my mental health comedian website, that's all it says. Are you looking for a suicide prevention speaker and trainer? Nothing about coaching TEDx, nothing about coaching speaking, comedy, auctioneering, emceeing. It just says, are you looking for a suicide prevention? And underneath that page are pages for each industry I work with. So I believe you need to pick a lane, then figure out who has that problem in that lane and willing to pay you for it, and then select 3, 6, maybe 10 ideal client groups or industries. They have the problem, you have the solution. When somebody calls me about speaking on suicide prevention, I don't have to convince them suicide prevention is a great idea. Yeah, they're well aware of that. They're just trying to decide which suicide prevention speaker they are going to use. So that's where I want to be, positioned as an expert in my topic, positioned as an expert in the industries where I pitch myself, my ideal client groups. And I believe you go from lane, problem to lane, lane to clients, clients to what associations they belong to. Because I tell all my coaching students, speaking students, you need to be speaking at conferences because you're on stage solving a problem for the association, and pretty much everybody in the audience probably has that same problem. So you're being paid to keynote, paid to showcase what you do, and you're really looking for the second sale, speaking, training, consulting, or coaching from members of the audience. That's what you're after. I did Washington Labor and Industry in February. BP was there, British Petroleum. They hired me for November 6th. I did that for them. November 7th, I got a call from one of the big contractors on site at the refinery. We want you to come back up and do that just for our people. 3 engagements from that first Washington Labor and Industry. So it's one to many. That's again, the reason to be that person, that speaker. And I think it will help eventually with publicity and associations. And as a speaker, you got to pitch yourself. I try to send out 5 speaker proposals a day, 5 marketing emails a day. I pitch myself to 5 podcasts a day in my topic area because I'm lazy. I don't want to do a podcast. I want somebody else to do the heavy lifting. I just want to be invited, come on and sparkle. And then they post it, I get SEO out of that. I post it, I get SEO out of that. So they're doing all the work, and all I got to do is go on and be my charming self, he said humbly. So, and I apply for 2 TEDx talks a day. I'm sorry, I apply for 1 TEDx talk a day. I have 2 current pitches. One is got creativity. There's a nap for that, because that's my process. When I have something I want to create, I go to sleep, and next thing you know, I wake up and text whoever asked me the question. So the other one is mental health and the orgasm, treat your depression single-handedly.
When it comes to real estate, the 3 most important factors are Exactly. When it comes to publicity, the three most important factors are location, location, and location. Position yourself where your target market already is. There are a lot of ways to get your message out there these days. There are so many ways to get your content out there, to scatter your message. But if your target market isn't there, it doesn't matter. So if you want to book speeches, you've got to put your content, your message in front of where your target market already is. And that's in trade and industry and association magazines. We hear from meeting planners all the time. They go to their association magazines knowing that if you're in their trade and industry and association magazines, if you've been given that stamp of endorsement, if you've been given that instant credibility by having your article placed in their trade magazine, in their association magazine, if that editor has put your article in their association magazine, that editor that has their finger on the pulse of their association, if your content solves the problem that that editor knows their association has, they know that you're going to be a great speaker to bring in to their next conference, because the readership of the magazine is the audience at the association, at the conference, at the convention. So position yourself in front of where your audience already is. So it's location, location, location. Put yourself there where they already are. And that's the best way to book the gig.
Wonderful, thank you. So thinking as a speaker here, thinking of that sweet spot between PR and speaking, I'd love to know your individual takes or sort of general philosophy on how PR and speaking complement each other, and how to find the balance between the two. You know, how do you determine that? And why is it important to speak? So we'll begin with you.
Okay. So obviously, I believe that PR is obviously a credibility builder, a trust builder, an expertise builder, validation builder. So to me, that is a natural feeder for speaking, right? The more opportunity, the more exposure you've had, whether it be in articles, whether it be a guest on podcasts, radio shows, television shows, what have you, building that credibility is going to make you a more validated speaker, right? The same way your book makes you more validated as an expert in your subject matter. So I do believe that publicity feeds assists in building a speaking profile. What I believe speaking gives you is that direct access, that direct contact to be right in front of the audience that is most important to you. Publicity is a little wider, but when you can get in front and speak and connect, it's a differentiator for sure. It's incredibly competitive. I mean, I'm really impressed with the amount of people in here who actually have successful speaking careers, because look, 20 years ago, everybody wanted to be an author, right? And now everybody can be an author, right? Which is great. Now everybody wants to be a speaker. And that's becoming more difficult in many ways, because whatever you're talking about, there's hundreds of people also talking about it. So it's finding those differentiators. Your book is a differentiator. Publicity is a differentiator, right? Platform is a differentiator, that necessary evil that a lot of us have to deal with in social media and trying to build an audience, which is really hard, much harder today than it was before. There's such saturation in everything that we do now. So the puzzle has a lot more pieces today than it used to have. And the pieces aren't the same for everybody, right? You can use the exact same pieces for two different people and have two very different outcomes. So a lot of it is throwing some lines in the water and seeing what's going to make a difference. I also think that aligning yourself in the speaking world with someone who can help you. It's great to be with the bureaus, you know, the Washington Speakers Bureau and all these other places. But if you're a $5,000 to $10,000 speaker, which by the way is nothing to sneeze at, they're not paying attention to you, right? They're not making enough money off of you. So you need to find somebody, they're not selling you, right? You're just a name in the catalog. You need to find somebody who believes in you, who is going to champion you, sell you, teach you how to sell yourself, how to identify your audiences. I believe that speaking is not something you can do halfway if you're really serious about it. You know, I said this yesterday, it's not like this, if you build it, they will come. You've got to go find it. You've got to put in the energy, the effort, the time, use your resources, use your network, but really educate yourself on the process, because it's not an easy one. And I suspect, and a lot of you could relate to this probably far more, it can be very deflating for a lot of people, right? And it's an easy one to go, shit, this just isn't working, so maybe I'm not equipped for it. Well, you probably are equipped for it. You just may not be working the process correctly. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, lots of good ideas there. So my situation is,
Going first, by the way.
yeah, I know what he said. No, the thing that I think is really difficult and interesting is that we all face now is cutting through the clutter of information that we're all dealing with. And it's, you know, how many of us every day are scrolling through social media and other things and making split-second decisions on what we're going to read, look at, do, be involved in. So to the point of going to where the people are that you want to find, I mean, that's absolutely true. It doesn't always guarantee that somebody's going to look at you, but it's the right place to go. I've found that, and again, I wrote 2 children's books. I did not write a business book. It's something I've thought about doing, but it's been fascinating to me, the power of what a book does to influence other things. And those of you that are here and have written very successful books have much more experience in this than I, but ever since I published the kids' books, I'll go to a chamber event, a business event, a networking event, wherever it is that I would normally have gone to try to generate business or talk about things, and 90% of the people want to talk to me about a book. And they will come up to me and they'll say, I'm so proud of you for writing a book. I've always wanted to write a book. Can you come talk to us about like what was your process, or what was this and that? And so I'm leveraging my storytelling to be able to be something where I can go and speak about that. And so it's been topical speaking about, like in the case of the autism story, about going, I get asked to speak in front of groups where I'm talking about as an authority figure, and I'm in no means an authority figure other than being the parent of an autistic child, but to talk about that, but that then leads into other opportunities as well. So I think whoever said it, where like your book is your best business card, it's absolutely true in that sense. But when you're talking about publicity and speaking, we're all seeking thought leaders in different industries. And the things that I think are important are looking at, to be effective and to make it relevant for as many people possible, is looking at national trends that are happening and tying whatever it is that you're trying to do into something in the national dialogue that's going on, so that you can say, yes, while I'm here in San Diego or wherever you may be from, let me tell you what I'm doing that's impacting something that's going on in a national way, and how I'm helping solve a problem or helping address an issue there. So there's no like one answer, no one size fits all, but those are just a couple of thoughts I had.
2 things. I agree with Russell. I never thought I'd say that.
Every once in a while.
Yes, I tell my speaker coaching students, look, once you found your ideal client groups, contact the state chapters and ask to speak to the editor of the newsletter, and offer to write an article for their newsletter, or hire Russell. And as you know, you're doing them a favor. You're giving value first, no particular expectation of return. And Ed Brigsby, friend of mine, thank you, long time, yeah, same price as downtown, long time, thanks for getting that joke. Is Ed Brigsby says, and on your way out the door, after you've delivered the article and they've thanked you, and your doorknob close. Oh, I did some research. You got a conference coming up in January, and I speak on this topic. Who is it at the association that decides who speaks? And hopefully they will connect you by email, transfer you, by phone. So you give value first. And the nice thing about state chapters is those newsletters don't cross state lines. You can use the same article for every state. Secondly, when you invite people to the party, you need to have, I charge $12,500 to speak, my all-inclusive package plus travel. My website has to look like I'm a $12,500 speaker, which is why I contracted with Corey and not somebody at Fiverr to construct a website so it looks like when they arrive, they're like, damn, guy must be worth the money. So make sure when you invite somebody to the party, your collateral material, your promo, your propaganda fits the fee you are asking. And last but not least, I never speak for exposure. It's something meeting planners do to get you to do it for free. They pay for the tablecloth, centerpieces, the entrees. They want to, and so, you know, exposure. It's such great exposure. I didn't just make that hand gesture, did I?
Just watch where you aim it.
That's right. Made a new friend. That's, yeah. Did I just out you? Yeah.
Woo! This
As
is a
as
spicy bunch.
Yeah. As a speaker, I tell my speaker coaching classes, never offer to speak for free, ever, ever. You speak for no fee or you waive your fee, which implies you have a fee. Yeah, so never remove the word free as a speaker from your vocabulary.
Well, my learned colleagues have spoken very eloquently, and I really have nothing to add to it on this topic. So a story from the great Patricia Fripp, many of you know, yes, who still after 40 years in the business felt the need to do publicity. Fortunately, she did it with PR. So, you know, and asking her, you know, why after 40 years you have the name, you have the clout. And she told me that one year, you know, she was looking at her calendar and planning out her next year. And she realized that there was a convention that she had spoken at every year for more than 10 years. And she was looking at her calendar for the next year and realized that that convention was not on her calendar. It wasn't. So, you know, being the good relationship builder person that she is, she called the meeting planner, called up the number, and the meeting planner that she dealt with for 10 years wasn't there. Somebody else answered the phone. There was a new person there who didn't know who Patricia Fripp was. They must have lived under a rock or something. But this was a new person at the association. They'd come in from another association and they'd brought the person that they liked to keynote into it. And they didn't know where the previous meeting planner had gone to, what association they'd moved on to. And no, sorry, we're not bringing you in this year. We're bringing in. So how volatile the speaking industry can be and how quickly it can change, and how even though you're someone even of Patricia Fripp's status, you can't count on it. And so even after 40 years, you need to stay relevant. And how, you know, with the proliferation of new books coming on and new speakers coming up, you need to continue to do publicity. And I'm going to hold on to this for the next question. Sorry.
Well, along these lines, okay, you've talked about best practices. What about worst practices?
Oh.
You know, what should you not do? I'm sure you have some thoughts about that.
Oh, I would hold on to it for that one. I did, yes. What you shouldn't do, don't dodge, don't try to hide from a client. It never pays off. The problem will only get bigger. You know, if you see a campaign is failing, if you see it's not going the way you think it should, get out in front of it. Well, and actually, I'm going to take a step back from that. And we were talking about this yesterday. If you don't even think you can help a client. If you don't even think they're the right client for you, don't even take them on in the first place. Quite frankly, and I've said this a lot of time, I'm never going to waste my time or somebody else's money. It's just a policy of mine. It's not worth a phone call 2 or 3 months in to get yelled at. I'm just not going to bother. So I know who I work with best. I always say speakers, authors, or speakers, consultants, and nonfiction authors. But even within that, it's business people. Those speakers that are looking for national name recognition in front of the B2B market. I had a conversation with a wonderful woman who had a book on biblical money management. Very interesting book, but I just don't think I can get articles in association magazines on that topic. So I said, sorry. Spoke to a woman one time who survived an abusive marriage, recovered from cancer. Her daughter now had cancer, and she was writing a book, and she was going to use the proceeds from that book to pay for her daughter's cancer treatments. And I honestly had to tell her, go to Barnes & Noble, look at all the self-help books there. Unless your book can say something different, take the money you were going to spend on publishing the book and put it towards the cancer treatments, because you're not going to make any money on your book. I hate to say that, but sorry, Henry, but don't publish your book. Don't even take on a client unless you think you can help them. But then if it's not going well, get out in front of it. Don't try to dodge it. Take on the problem in advance, make the corrections where you can, and, manage the problem in advance.
We talked about exposure, didn't we? Don't ever do anything for exposure. Now, some speakers will not do an engagement because the nonprofit, let's say, doesn't have near their fee, and they're worried about fee integrity. Suppose somebody finds out that I did for the local San Diego rescue, whatever, I did it for $500, and they, because meeting planners speak among themselves, and they come to me and go, well, you did this for $500 for the San Diego Humane Society. So my advice in that situation is say, if that's your cause, if you want to donate your time to do a speech for those people, what I say is, look, I can't do it for $500. I cannot. However, if you are willing to write a check for $500 and give it to my favorite pet rescue organization in my name and my wife's name, then I'll do the engagement. We used to do this with something here in San Diego called Mama's Kitchen. It was a Meals on Wheels for people with HIV. And I would have them write the check to Mama's Kitchen because I was passionate about that cause. And my wife was actually making sandwiches one day at Mama's Kitchen for the meals. And the association executive director came over and said, are you Wendy King? Yes. Is your husband Frank King? Yes. How does he get people to write us checks? Because I never told them they were coming. They just dropped out of the sky. So a real win-win for the client, for Mama's Kitchen, for us, that we were able to do the engagement, but and I maintain fee integrity. Because somebody said, well, you did that for $500. No, I never touched the money. It went to Mama's Kitchen. So just if you want to do the engagement and they don't have the money, then I would say find your favorite nonprofit and have them donate.
Would you repeat the question though? Was it what you don't?
Yeah. What not to do? What is not a best practice?
So I agree with never take on a client that you don't think you can help with. I mean, that's at the core of everything, or that your personal integrity and ethics don't speak with. I've had numerous opportunities where somebody will come to you and they're in a crisis situation or whatever, and they want you to do crisis PR or whatever, and I'm like, you got yourself into this. I mean, the one thing as a PR person, I always have to remember too, it's their crisis, not my crisis. I can help them get out of it, but do I even philosophically feel like it's something that I would want to align myself from a professional integrity standpoint? So that's good. I'm also somebody who, we've talked about this as PR people, I'm the worst publicist for myself. But for anybody else, I'm happy to do it. It's something, I don't know, it's in it. We talk about this as PR people, like we're the worst publicists for ourselves. I'm not a shameless self-promoter. I'm not this and that. I like to just help people wherever I can and hope that the integrity and the work that you do speaks for itself. So again, not taking on things that you don't think you can solve, I think would be in line with what he said, the best thing.
Yeah, going for it sucks. For so for me, it's don't set false expectations for people, right? People come in with big expectations about, like, well, I'll talk more about publicity than speaking. Oftentimes come in with big expectations, and I am all about level setting expectations. And a lot of times I'll lose business because I'm not going to be the one who's going to champion these aspirations that I don't believe, with my 30 years experience, are really realistic. That's not to say that, like, I'm a big believer in that no one can say no unless you give them a chance to say no. So sure, we can pitch the morning shows or we can pitch X or Y, but it's really important to set reasonable expectations for people. It's making sure that whatever decisions they make in terms of spending their money, that they're going into it eyes wide open, and you're helping them make those decisions eyes wide open. If I'm going to do this, what should I expect? It goes back to the expectations part of it. So I'll have clients who say, okay, David, if I come and going to work with you for 4 or 5 months, how many books am I going to sell? And my answer is always, start with 0. And if the work that we do is valuable to you, then we continue the conversation. But if you're relying on an ROI from book sales, keep your money in your pocket and never spend money that's going to impact how you pay your mortgage, your light bill, and all these other things. You need to be smart about these investments that you're going to make, because anything that happens from, let's say, publicity, for instance, the results that you want, whether it's a book sale, whether it's a view on your website or what have you, it's all subjective, right? We don't have any control of the end user. We're trying to influence them, but we have no control. So again, for me, it's level setting expectations, being super transparent. I always say, under promise, over deliver, and that makes people feel great in the end. I have a lot of clients who will come back to me after they chose not to work with me because I was transparent with them and didn't meet what they wanted with their enthusiasm, and then come back and say, I should have listened to you. Those are some of my best referral sources. Instead of referring the person that they worked with, they end up referring the person who was honest with them.
So helpful. Gentlemen, thank you for your wisdom and your expertise.